What's better, running your own warehouse or letting a prep center handle all the hard work for you? In this video, I'll break it down so you know what fits better in each situation and when it makes sense to go all in on a warehouse, if at all. We'll cover the pros and cons of both, the time commitment needed, including the costs, and how much control you have over your inventory. New sellers tend to think that it's a good idea to send products directly from their suppliers to Amazon's warehouse. It's faster and cheaper, right? Wrong. A lot of things can go wrong when doing it this way. Firstly, they're inexperienced with Amazon shipments. Secondly, they're used to sending a lot of goods to one location, not having to label a bunch of different units and boxes and send them to multiple locations. Every time I've had products sent directly to Amazon from my supplier, at least one thing has gone wrong. Either products go missing or shipments get delayed. Have the products sent to your house, for example, or your warehouse, or to a prep center, to people that are experienced or at least you have the control over. Let's talk about prep centers first. If you're a new seller, prep centers can feel like a lifesaver. Imagine this, you don't have to figure out how to store, pack, or even ship your products. Someone else does all the hard work for you. No need to hire employees or invest a bunch of money up front on things like jacks and forklifts, shelves, benches, or having to pay that dreaded rental bond. It's just plug and play for your business. But there's a trade-off. When you rely on a prep center, you lose a bit of the control you have over your inventory. For example, if you're in a rush to send products to Amazon as fast as possible, your hands are tied by how quickly your prep center can get things done. And while it's great for beginners, it's not always the cheapest option when you want to start scaling. Costs can really add up when you're moving serious volume. Now let's look at the other side. Owning your own warehouse. This is where you get full control over your products. You decide when you can send your products to Amazon and you can check the quality of every single item. If something is damaged or off, you can report it to your supplier right away. Plus, once your business starts booming, running a warehouse can actually save you a lot of money in the long run. But here's the reality check. It's a big time commitment. You'll need to handle or hire someone to handle every step of the process. Basically unpacking, repacking, polybagging, labeling, boxing, and shipping. Not exactly glamorous work, and it's very time consuming. Then there are the upfront costs. Renting a space, buying equipment, stocking up on supplies. It can feel overwhelming, especially if you're a new seller. Now let's start adding some real world examples. If you're using a prep center, you'll have to work out a few things. For example, what's the average cost per unit? Some units are more expensive. For example, they might need polybagging or bubble wrapping, or they might be multi-packs. Then you have to work out how much time it costs to get the product sent there. Lastly, you want to know how accurate your prep center is. Do they make mistakes? Hopefully they don't. But if you're operating a warehouse, you need to consider all the expenses, and there are a lot of them. The fact that you need to allocate a lot of time to doing this work, or that you'll need to hire and train employees to do the work. Let's think about the time it takes to prepare the units. If you're using a prep center and you send them 1,000 units, it might take between 3 to 7 days for those units to be prepped and sent to Amazon. Even more if your prep center is busy and there's a backlog. If you operate your own warehouse, of course you have to prep the goods yourself. That's either you or an employee doing that. Now, if they're easy to prep goods, 1,000 units might take up to 5 hours to do. So that's one person working 5 hours, or 5 people, for example, working 1 hour each. But then there are also hard to prep goods. Goods that might need polybagging or bubble wrapping. Some might be multi-packs. They take a bit longer. They can take up to 15 hours to complete. So that's one person working 15 hours or 15 people working 1 hour each, for example. Next are all the costs. The average prep center in the US will probably cost around $1.10 per unit on average. That's also including multi-packs and stuff like that. And they usually take between 3 to 7 days on average to send the products off to Amazon. Just a side note, because I buy and sell in bulk, I've managed to get my prep costs down real low. I pay on average around 60 cents per unit, and my products are shipped off within 3 days after arriving at my prep center. I send a lot of products to Amazon, so my prep center makes a lot of money from me, so they can afford to give me discounts. If you want more info on stuff like that, join my Telegram group where we discuss everything to do with Amazon FBA wholesale. The cost to run your warehouse can vary depending on the size of the warehouse and the city you're located in. But monthly, you'll probably be spending around $1,500-ish on rents, another $600 on utilities, $100 on insurance. Now, employees might cost you $15 per hour or $20 per hour for a manager. So monthly, that might be around $2,500 to $3,000. Then there are your equipment costs. You might be paying up to $20 $20,000, for example, to get a forklift, jacks, shelves, benches, and stuff like that. But if you're to spread that over a lifetime, which could be around 20 years, for example, you'll probably be paying $200 to $300 a month just for those things. For simplicity purposes, let's just assume that you're spending $2,500 per month on your warehouse and another $2,500 per month per employee you hire. So with one employee, you're probably spending around $5,000 per month. Then there are costs that scale depending on how many items you have to prepare and send to Amazon. For example, certain material costs like poly bags and bubble wraps, boxes, ink for printing labels. These all scale the more you sell. You're also going to have more dumpster expenses. A garbage truck has to come by and throw away all your rubbish. Let's average out all these costs and assume they're going to cost around 15 cents per unit you send to Amazon. Economically, it becomes viable to open up your own warehouse when the prep costs at a prep center exceed the cost that you'll be spending monthly at your own warehouse. Based on the expenses we mentioned earlier, if you're only sending 100 units to Amazon every month, it's complete overkill to open up a warehouse considering all the upfront expenses that you'll have. 100 units a month will probably only cost you around $110 to prepare at a prep center. So it doesn't justify the minimum of $2,500 a month you need to open up your warehouse. But even 1,000 units a month at a prep center will only cost you around $1,100, which again doesn't justify the warehouse costs. It starts becoming economically viable at around 3,000 units per month. At a prep center for 3,000 units, you'll probably spend around $3,300 to have them prepped. While at your warehouse, you'll spend $2,500 just on your monthly fees, plus another $300 to $500 on your material costs. So your cost will be around $3,000 or just under. Even though it's become economically viable at 3,000 units per month, does that mean it's viable for all the other reasons? Remember, you have to spend a lot of money upfront on equipment costs like jacks and forklifts and stuff like that. Secondly, to prepare 3,000 units, it's going to take you a minimum of 15 hours, a maximum of 45 hours, depending on the complexity. So that's about a week of work, let's say. What are you going to be doing in the other 3 weeks of the month? So from an economic perspective, it might be viable at 3,000 units per month, but from a time perspective, it might be more viable when you're sending 2,000 to 3,000 units per week. So at least 10,000 units per month. The next question you have to ask yourself in regards to opening up your own warehouse is the amount of space you'll need. So if you're sending in 3,000 units, for example, every single week, that means you might need more space. So the $1,500 a month rent might not cut it. The more products you're receiving and sending to Amazon, the bigger space you will eventually need. So the more you'll have to pay in rent. Now I'm going to calculate when it becomes personally viable for me to open up a warehouse considering my prep costs. And you can do the same calculation yourself. So I said earlier that it cost me 60 cents to send a product to Amazon, and a warehouse is going to cost around $2,500 per month without any employees. So divide $2,500 a month by 60 cents, and that gives you 4,166 products per month for it to be economically viable. Now, I send even more products every month to Amazon, but I like only working 10 hours a week on product research, so I'm not even thinking about opening up a warehouse. Maybe if I was sending 5,000 to 10,000 units per week, it might be something that I would think about. But again, I live in Australia and I sell in the US, so it's not something I'm considering at all at this point. So do you really need a warehouse to sell on Amazon? For most sellers, the answer is no, not until you're scaling big. Prep centers are a great way for those who want to send smaller volumes to Amazon or who want to save time and avoid costs. But when you're sending thousands of units a week to Amazon, it might be worth the investment if you're ready for the extra workload and for the upfront expenses. At the end of the day, it's about finding what works best for your business and lifestyle. Thanks for watching, guys. If you found this video helpful, like and subscribe. And if you want to hear some more FBA tips, join my Telegram group. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.